Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues now. And make sure to stay tuned to catch me, Mike Gallagher, coming up at 9, only on AM 560, The Answer.
Dan and Amy, good morning. And so a trial date has been set in the case of former Chicago police officer Jason Van Dyke, the shooting death of Laquan McDonald, September 5th.
That's
so
soon.
Coming right after Labor Day and right into the teeth of an election cycle. You can't look at this case without putting it in, on the electoral calendar, because it's a case, depending on what comes out in trial, not only impacting people's sense of the justice system in Chicago, the future of the future of Jason Van Dyke's life and that of his family, but also possibly the mayoral election. And so for more on this, a little bit of a preview, how this will transpire, how long it might go before there's resolution. We're pleased to be joined by Jason Van Dyke's attorney. He is Dan Herbert. Dan, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Sure. Good morning.
So can you just kind of give us the basics of the trial? Is it going to be a bench trial? Are we going to have a jury? How does this trial proceed on September 5th?
Well, September 5th, obviously, is the start date, but certainly will not be the start date of the trial. We have not yet decided whether we will use a selected jury or a bench trial. We will not do that until we determine whether or not the venue will be in the county. That certainly will be a factor. And two, we certainly need to see the jury pool prior to making that decision. And at the end of the day, it's going to be my client's decision whether to go with the bench or the jury trial. But certainly we are going to provide him legal advice in that matter.
Oh, just with respect to change of venue, are you going to seek a change of venue?
We absolutely are. We filed 2 motions in support of our change of venue. We certainly believe that we have more than enough compelling data to convince any reasonable individual that it's virtually impossible to receive a fair trial in Cook County, and we're hoping that the court recognizes this and grants our change of venue.
Well, where do you think, what would be a good county? I mean, Will County, is that a possibility, or do you want to take this out of state? Can you even?
I don't think that we can pick it out of state. There's no chance that this trial is going to be moved. I think that that's pretty clear. What we would ideally like that, but in the alternative, we would certainly seek to have a jury from a different county come in. And yeah, to answer your question, it could be one of the taller counties, one of the counties that we analyzed 3 counties for taint and for exposure and for prejudice. And one of the counties was certainly Cook, as well as Lake County and then Madison County in downstate Illinois. And the numbers outside of Cook are dramatically different, but even more so the further you get away from the taller counties.
What is your client's life like these days? What has he been doing for the last few years awaiting trial?
Well, his life is certainly not been good. His life it's been destroyed despite the outcome of this trial, whatever that may be. But his daily life is, other than this, everything that's occurred and everything that he is facing, it's been no different than any other father of 2 young kids. He's out there trying to make ends meet and to provide a good life for his wife and his children as best as he can.
Is he employed?
He is still doing some janitorial work, I believe. I don't know if he how much work it is, but I know that he has been working. I believe the police union employed him, and it's my understanding he's still working there part-time.
And I saw the last court hearing, he had a bulletproof vest on. Is that protocol for him? Is that his normal? Is that how he has to go to 26 in California?
Unfortunately, it is. And him and his father have been wearing vests for, well, really since the inception of these proceedings. But yeah, they're doing that out of genuine fear. He's received many death threats, and without getting into too many details, we're aware of threats and violence that are made virtually each and every court date.
There's some suggestion that there's going to be a real incentive to plead this case out, that the last thing that the mayor and the Cook County State's Attorney can risk is an acquittal, that it would have the potential to throw this city up for grabs. I mean, there's already, a lot of talk and even some planning with respect to response, depending on how a verdict would come down in this case. Has there been any overture to you about a negotiated deal, or is that something that you and your client would even entertain?
Well, it hasn't been brought to us, and I don't foresee any negotiation for a plea deal happening in this place. Certainly, if the prosecutors would have come to us with something less than what we have always deemed to be a ridiculous overcharge of first-degree murder, we would certainly consider it. But to date, that has not happened.
What was your reaction over the weekend? There was another police-involved shooting. The suspect was killed, but the body camera footage was released less than 24 hours after it happened. What was your reaction to that? Do you think they handled that properly?
Yeah, I do think they handled it properly. Unfortunately, all of these shootings are going to look bad. That's just the nature of it. But I think that there's some lessons that have to be taken from these, and you hope the politicians and the community leaders would certainly try to hammer this home. And people have to realize that you can never give a police officer a reason to be fearful or to overreact. And we're seeing that happen time and time again, certainly in this case as well. When people are armed and non-compliant with police officers, that scares police officers, and it also kicks in their duty to, they have a duty, they can't retreat from making lawful arrests. They have to make these lawful arrests. So, I think, it certainly shows the fear in police officers. I mean, they're scared when they go out there. We have to remember that they're human beings, and that when they get scared, when people react a certain way, it's likely to turn out poorly for the community.
If, assuming this case does go to trial, is there a likelihood that information would come out during the trial related to the conduct of the mayor and the police chief at the time, Gary McCarthy, and the handling of everything that followed the shooting before that video came to light and the indictment was handed down? Are some of these civilian authorities going to be brought into this trial in terms of their conduct?
Well, as you guys know, at a criminal trial, the issues are really limited to the criminal act, the alleged criminal act, and the circumstances leading up to and shortly thereafter. So to answer your question, we've already sifted through a lot of the evidence, and the evidence is, as you can imagine, overwhelming in this case. And it's very unlikely that we or the state will be able to get into any of the conduct of the mayor or the police chief some year later after the shooting, just because the court would likely deem that irrelevant to the crime.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys talk about or think about the backdrop of this trial against the mayor's reelection?
We do. I mean, it's, first and foremost, I'm a Chicagoan, so I certainly recognize what's the impact that this case has on different political events, not the least of which is the pending mayoral election. But honestly, my focus has really just been on my client in this case and putting on the best case possible for him.
The FOP boss, Graham, on this show a few weeks back ago said he believes that Jason Van Dyke would be acquitted. And, I mean, that's not the only person who has taken that position based on, what he knows. And obviously he doesn't know as much as you know, but he's obviously following this case very closely. He knows perhaps more than the average resident of Chicago. Is it your belief, if this goes the distance, that your client will be acquitted?
Well, you never know how the evidence is going to go in, but in a case like this, I know what my evidence is, and I am convinced that I will be able to present evidence that will be compelling to show that this was not a criminal act. Whether or not that results in a not guilty, I think depends on a lot of different factors, as we all know. If we are able to obtain a reasonable trial effect, I'm very confident that we'll be successful.
All right. He is Dan Herbert, defense attorney for Chicago police officer Jason Van Dyke, who goes to trial September 5th in the Laquan McDonald killing case. Dan Herbert, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Sure. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.